modern people are lonelier than humans are designed to be. Not physically lonely, psychologically lonely. Baudrillard wrote about hyperreality, the idea that simulations slowly become more emotionally real than reality itself. And honestly, I think modern love exists there now. People don't just fall in love with each other anymore, they fall in love with projection, potential, aesthetic, and curated intimacy. Sometimes the edited version of somebody starts feeling more emotionally real than the actual person. And I think that's why heartbreak feels so strange now. Because maybe you're not grieving the real person at all. Maybe you're grieving the version your nervous system created around them. Carl Jung talked about projection, the idea that people unconsciously place unfinished part of themselves onto other humans. Maybe that's why love can feel supernatural in the beginning, because projection feels exactly like destiny. And maybe people repeat the same relationship over and over again, not because they're stupid, but because the nervous system confuses familiarity with safety, even when the familiarity hurts. And Arthur Schopenhauer believed romantic love was partly biological manipulation, that humans mistake instincts for destiny, which is honestly kind of terrifying. What if love isn't sacred? But if it's survival pretending to be poetry? As a child, I thought soulmates was real. Now I think humans are trying to make the temporary feel meaningful. Maybe forever is just a story the nervous system invented to survive abandonment. Mark Fisher wrote about modern emptiness in a way that feels almost prophetic now. Overstimulation, emotional numbness, infinite distraction, the strange loneliness of existing online all the time. I think modern people are drowning in signals and starving for meaning. That's why cities feels emotional sometimes, because they distract the nervous system just enough to keep us functioning. Neon become anesthesia, movement become anesthesia, noise becomes anesthesia, and maybe love too. Sometimes I think heartbreak is the moment the simulation, the moment another person stops carrying the meaning your nervous system projected onto them, and sometimes you're forced to confront how alone consciousness actually is. I think humans turn love into mythology because reality felt too temporary to survive emotionally. As children, we inherit stories before we inherit reality. Soulmates, forever, the one, true love, nobody really tells you those ideas might just be emotional survival mechanics. And Buddhism says attachment creates suffering. And honestly, that might be one of the most terrifying observations ever made about human beings. Because what if suffering begins the moment the nervous system mistakes the temporary for permanence? I used to think heartbreak meant losing a person. Now I think it might be the collapse of a belief system, a physiological religion dying inside the body. Because if love was never permanent, then what exactly were we worshipping? Sometimes I wonder if modern people are even capable of intimacy anymore, or if we all just emotionally consuming each other's profiles, fragment, curated personalities, temporary dopamine. Maybe technology transformed intimacy into simulation, and now everybody wants to feel desired, without tolerating the vulnerability required to actually love another human being. In older centuries, people disappeared. Now they stay digitally preserved forever. Tiny emotional fossil trapped inside your phone, and the nervous system keeps reacting to them like they're still alive. Sometimes I think modern heartbreak isn't even heartbreak anymore. Maybe it's just neurological haunting. The body reacts to emotional ghosts long after the relationship had ended. And there's a Japanese concept called mono no aware, the sadness of things existing temporarily. Cherry blossom becomes beautiful because they disappear. Train rides becomes emotional because they end. Maybe humans only fully experience beauty through loss. And maybe that's why love hurt so much. Not because it was fake, but because the nervous system desperately wanting something temporarily to become permanent. Roland Barthes wrote about love as fragments, and honestly that feels true. Nobody remembers relationships linear. We remember pieces, train stations, perfumes, rain, a sentence, a look, a laughter, tiny emotional artifacts floating through memory like debris after an explosion. And maybe that's why Wong Kar-wai films feel so emotionally real, because they understand the memory isn't narrative. Memory is like the weather. What if love was never what humans thought it was? What if it's not destiny, but pattern recognition mistakes for fate? People always say, I never felt this way before. Neuroscience suggests the brain constantly compares the present to emotional memories from the past, which means maybe love isn't discovery, maybe it's recognition. Humans call it chemistry, but maybe chemistry is just the nervous system finding something emotionally familiar. Even the familiar means dangerous. That's the terrifying part. The body can make mistake chaos for intimacy, because survival and love becomes tangled together, especially when abandonment shaped the nervous system early. The book, The Body Keeps the Score, it ruined me a little because it forced me to realize the body remembers things the mind desperately wants to outgrow, which means heartbreak doesn't just live in your memory. It lives in posture, breathing, sleep, pulse. The nervous system becomes haunted physically. Sometimes I wonder if humans invented romantic language because biology sounded too cold. Soulmates sounds prettier than dopamine and attachment wounds. The one sounds prettier than familiar nervous system patterns, and forever sounds prettier than temporarily chemical dependency. Blade Runner 2049 understood something terrifying about human beings. People don't just want love, they want meaning strong enough to survive loneliness, even artificial meanings. Maybe memories becomes addictive because they let the nervous system revisit emotional intensity safely, like emotional self-harm disguised as nostalgia. Sometimes I think heartbreaks sounds spiritual because identity dissolves inside attachment. You stop knowing who you are outside the emotional architecture another person has built, and suddenly you're not just grieving them, you're grieving the version of reality that existed beside him. Maybe that's why humans fear abandonment so deeply, not just because being alone hurts, but because attachment quietly becomes part of your identity. And when the attachment disappears, The nervous system experiences it like a partial physiological death. Maybe that's why people stay in relationship long after they stop feeling loved, because the nervous system prioritizes familiarity over truth. Even suffering can start feeling sacred if it lasts long enough. I don't think humans are afraid of heartbreaks. I think humans are afraid love was never real to begin with, because if love isn't real, then what exactly has the nervous system been destroying itself over for centuries? Sometimes I think human beings are just meaning-making machines trapped inside temporary bodies, and love becomes the most beautiful story we ever invented to survive a temporary life, which is tragic, but also strangely beautiful. Maybe love was never supposed to last forever. Maybe it only needed to feel real long enough to change us, long enough to leave fingerprints on the nervous system. There's something horrifying about realizing memories continue evolving even after the relationship dies. The nervous system keeps editing, color grading, softening until eventually you can't fully separate the real person from the emotional mythology surrounding them anymore. And maybe that's why people revisit old heartbreak. Not because they want the person back, but because they miss the emotional intensity of believing something permanent existed. Tarkovsky once said, "Slow films change your relationship over time." I think heartbreak does the same thing. Time stops behaving normally, minutes stretch, a memory loop, entire year becomes collapsed into fragments. And suddenly your whole life starts feeling less like narrative and more like weather. The real tragedy, that not that love ends, but that humans can never fully enter each other's inner world. And I used to think that love meant finding home inside another person. Now I think it might just mean temporarily forgetting how alone conscious really is. Maybe beautiful thing hurts because they were never